Alright, guys, Tomboy Official, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking a bit about money mindset for LGBTQ plus people. How you doing? Hopefully you're doing good. It is cold in here. Had my heater set between 67, 68 degrees or so, and I feel like that is actually still too cold. So, I don't know. Slept okay. Feel way better this morning than I did yesterday morning. I guess the difference is potentially that yesterday was Weed Wednesday. Potentially that I smoked a bowl at like 6 something in the morning yesterday, maybe. Potentially that I went to the gym in the late afternoon, got in a really good workout. It was slow, but it was good. I had some cardio warm up on a broken elliptical that helped me to uh at least have my resistance and height of the leg strides higher than what I would normally do for myself. So because it was broken, like I guess the first elliptical I went on kept making like this clicking, this knocking sound every time on the right foot. Like I couldn't really feel anything, but it was just annoying. And I didn't have my headphones yesterday, no earbuds, no nothing. So I couldn't block it out. And I was like, this is annoying. I can't do this. And so I switched over to the one. I wanted one elliptical between me and the person on my right. So there was only that clicking, knocking one, and then the one to my very left, and that was the last one in the row. I got onto that left one, and it had like these settings. It was like, I think it said 88.8, or maybe it was zeros. I think it was eights though. It was in like an error mode or needed to be reset or something. So it basically, you couldn't adjust any resistance or any of the buttons other than the time elapsed and um, maybe like what it showed as far as like the distance or speed or you know whatever. So, but yeah, I couldn't adjust any of the resistance or anything. So I just stayed on it because I was like, I'm only doing like a 5 minute warm up. So I did the 5 minute warm up, and I felt pretty warmed up actually. Um, Versus what I would have done on my own, I would have probably kept it a little, like usually the strides, I don't make them like as high. I usually put high resistance but on lower strides, so maybe I'll do that again because it kept me from having to do squats, that's for sure. And I was kind of feeling it in my legs, so and it did something because I felt it overnight. um and I only took like half of the melatonin. I took like 2.5 milligrams of melatonin. I went and got some energy and focus neurogum last night. I did not know that at CVS they have the dollar off coupon sticker where you're supposed to take it off the product and scan it. I don't get out much, guys. I did not know that that was like a thing. Um, I saw the stickers, but I was like, let me just take it home and take the sticker off. I thought it was like a rebate code or something. Like I didn't know. I didn't know. I never knew you were supposed to take something off in the store. And the stickers on there so strong. It seems like it's supposed to stay on, but basically there's a barcode on the back of the sticky part that you're supposed to scan, which I just didn't know you were supposed to take it off. So I've got three of them, and each of them had a $1 off, and I missed the $1 off at checkout because I didn't know that you were supposed to scan it. Once I got home, I took the stickers off, thinking I was gonna, you know, go on some website and type in some barcode or something, and like, no, that's not the case. That's not how it works. So now I know that when I see those stickers, I can take them off in the store and scan it in the store and get my discount that way, which I did not do. So I left $3 on the table, uh, and you guys can tell I obviously don't go into stores and shop all that much. Like, I have avoided it for quite a few years, and the climate of things has allowed me to do so, and so I have avoided it. Um, and yeah, I'm feeling pretty good this morning. I had like a little tiny sip of C4, a couple pieces of Neurogum. I wanted to switch it up from the coffee. Neurogum has caffeine, B6 and B12 vitamins, and L-theanine. It doesn't have aspartame or any of the like fake sugars and things like that. Uh, it's about 80 milligrams of caffeine per piece of gum. I guess the issue I don't like is if you chew two pieces of gum, it's way too big. Um, Two pieces of gum together is like the biggest piece of gum. Like, it's too much gum in your mouth at the same time. Um, so there's that. Let me see. What did I eat yesterday? I had a pretty big late breakfast. I'll call it brunch because it was actually probably closer to 10. Now, I did not sleep very good Wednesday night. I woke up at like 3 something in the morning. I was up till like past 7 or 6 or 7 because I think once I smoked a bowl at like 6, I just knocked back out. So I didn't even record yesterday because I passed the time. I slept through it till like 9:30. I felt okay at 9:30. Um, and for once, I was like the only one in the house at 9:30. So I used that opportunity to make some food. So I didn't eat till like 10. I had like some eggs, I mixed some, I sauteed some spinach with mushrooms and onions and a tomato from the garden and some toast with butter, a little bit of kielbasa sausage, like a piece of the turkey one, just for more flavor. And that's pretty much what I ate for breakfast. But it was late. It was probably like 10 by the time I was eating. And I just kind of relaxed for a couple hours and then went out and did some deliveries and went to the gym. Uh, got back around 2:30. Or actually, I think, yeah, I got back around 3 because I left the gym at 2:45 ish. And then uh, popped in some laundry after a shower, and from Uber Eats I got some free McDonald's because I didn't really want McDonald's actually, but I was like, well, I already have it and it's free, and if I wait till the next day, that's probably not gonna it's not gonna be the best of food to eat. So I ate that for like, I guess it was like 3 o'clock, and then I ate for dinner maybe around 7:30. I had a bowl of uh like beans, the beans from the day before, with some pieces of carrots, potatoes, I think a little bit of onion. It tastes like it's got like that little liquid smoke flavor, but there's no meat in it. So I just had a little bit of that because, I know the burger was pretty heavy, and I already had like uh an organic vegetable protein shake after the gym, so I was like, McDonald's is like countering all the work I did yesterday, but I was like, it's a free meal, so let's just take it. I ate most of the Big Mac. Let's call it about half of the fries. I gave the other half of the fries to my mom, and then they came with a large Sprite, so I gave that to my mom. Um, and yeah, it wasn't anything too excitable, but um I ate it, and that's kind of all I had yesterday. It wasn't really anything big. Oh yeah, I had like this turkey stick and I think a granola bar. Nah, I think just a turkey stick before I went to the gym. It was kind of like Slim Jim style, but like the large one. All right, so that's kind of got me on track. I don't know about you guys. Yesterday I was off track in the morning and did what I had to do to get myself on track. Um, I couldn't have another day like that. I was like, that's just too much to be waking up at all these weird hours and stuff. Had to kind of get that fixed. That's why I feel like all the exercise and things kind of helped. And I wouldn't say I ate super healthy because of that Big Mac, but I mean, other than the Big Mac, it was healthy and I didn't overdo it. I didn't drink all that gigantic soda. I didn't eat all the Big Mac and I didn't eat all the fries. So I was decent. I ate like a decent caloric amount that's like, okay, this is about the size of like a normal meal because I think those meals are like over 2,000 calories each. It's at least 1,500 calories if you don't add the soda. Um, like a large fries and a Big Mac, like they're like your full day's worth of calories already. And so I already knew that. So I was like, I'm not gonna eat that much of it. I ate enough to feel like I ate enough food, and I had that protein shake before that, which was like, let's call it like 150 calories or so. So I didn't really eat all that much. I tried to like be conscious of what I was doing, even though I was eating crappy food. Um, I probably would not have eaten that. That was not my plan. Um, I have food at home. I would have come home and just cooked something. Um, I have these black beans by Amy's. Um, I could have eaten those. Just throw some stuff in it and make like a black bean chili. That would have been easy, and that's probably what I would have done. Maybe add some rice. I don't know. But all right, so let's talk about this topic. Um, Now that I've filled in my day, the reason why I do that first is because it's hard for me to focus otherwise, and second, you know, like I don't want people to think that my days are like, oh, everything's perfect all the time, but they're not crappy days all the time either. Um, but just I can definitely tell, when my body and mind let me know when I'm kind of on a good track of choices, and then when I'm not for quite a few days, it becomes pretty apparent. Um, so yeah, I would say when you think about money mindset, you really have to think about all the other stuff too. I mean, the last few days I've been posting about health and wellness and things like that. Like it's really going to be hard to get your focus up. It's going to be hard to keep motivated. It's going to be hard to follow through if you're not in a healthy mindset. um if you're going to be down on yourself and negative and your head's everywhere and you're foggy and you're overwhelmed and you're stressed and you can't concentrate, I mean, you're not really, you can get somewhere like that, but it's really just going to be like pulling teeth. It's really not going to be as smooth as it could be as far as how you spend your energy. So one of the best things is try to get your energy in a place where you can tolerate disappointment, tedious things, um just the need to kind of multitask. I'll give you an example. um you guys know I'm working on this Shopify store again, and I'm in the process of setting up a TikTok shop. Now what the TikTok shop does is people can see the items on TikTok. So when I run like reels on TikTok or whatever they're called, like just like clips on TikTok, if people like what they see, they can click and it will take them to a buy now page. It's actually through the Shopify store. It goes connects to Shopify, and they can go to the product and purchase that way. Um, Now, the benefit of that is I mean, TikTok has its own form of content. For the most part, I would say most people use TikTok on their phone, right? It's kind of built for the phone for the most part. Um, so you kind of have to think about, the user experience. Um, but you know, posting to TikTok, having like a store, making content, all this kind of stuff, it takes a lot of effort. And there's always going to be the back and forth with these platforms. Like, I get frustrated with it just like anybody else. You have to do this one thing, and then, oh, you got to find this QR code, and then, but you can't find the QR code or it doesn't work. And then you got to find some other route, and you got to watch some video to figure out how to solve that error message or whatever, and then you get kicked out of your account because you're doing something that TikTok is like, you're not allowed to do that, and then they ban you for like 3 days, and you're like, oh my goodness. Like, that's the kind of stuff that you deal with when you're trying to do something with like an online store. Like, you're just trying to make money, and there's all these like situations just popping up. It's not, that's one reason why it's not that easy. Like, in theory, it's like, okay, just like back in the day, remember when you used to just post something on eBay and it would just work and people would just buy it? Or I used to post stuff on Craigslist and people would just buy it. Like, it wasn't a big deal. The post took like not even 5 minutes to set it up. You weren't paying anything out of pocket. Like, you weren't getting charged any fees. They weren't telling you, oh, pay an extra buck or $2.99 to promote this, and then you're losing more money. Like, you're not losing like $4 or $5 every time you're selling something. Like, but now that's how it is. Every platform is trying to gouge you, at least for a little bit. Think of how much money they make. They make like $1 to $4 or $5 minimum per sale now, whereas before, like, the money was mostly yours. And if you think about it, you're losing money. You got all these fees on top of taxes you have to pay. Don't forget, guys, if you are selling stuff online, you will have to pay taxes on it if you make past a certain amount of money, and that sucks. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know, you don't usually think that, you know, if you're trying to run an online business or start an online gig, you know, usually a lot of people don't think it's going to work. They usually fall off of it pretty early. Um, but ask yourself, how long are you willing to try at something before you start making money? The way I see it is, like people say, like the school of life, and it's true. Think about school in general. You know, in the US, most of us go to school at least from kindergarten to 12th grade. When we're in school and we're like doing it and we're like actually trying to finish. Um, and, if you don't finish, you can still get your GED, meaning that you finished the coursework on your, or you finished at least testing out of, subjects and topics that you would have needed to know for, high school. And so you get that, qualification, and now you can say that you've finished the high school portion. Now, in a lot of places, you can just go after high school and just get work. A lot of people do. They go to high school, they get work, and then you might be able to move up. You might have an apprenticeship, you might have something like some kind of a trade. Those are kind of faster routes straight into work, right? Compared to if you take the college route, whether that's community college or university, you've got another, uh, 4 or so years if you're trying to get a bachelor's, maybe 1 to 2 years if you're getting an associate's. But the reason why I'm mentioning that is, think about how long you spend in school, you know, and you're not usually there to get paid. You're usually there to learn, right? Now, if you translate that into your professional life, like, are you learning skills? Like, even if you are between jobs, like, how are you spending that time? Are you just like throwing applications to the wind, or are you actually like learning something, you know, developing skills and, maybe getting a certification, or, doing something to improve your situation? And that's what I would recommend. Right now, this digital world is it's like something we've never seen before. Like, I notice it because I'm online all the freaking time. Like, I can kind of take a step back and see the potential of the online world. And the reason why I'm saying it now in the month of November is because we live in a very consumeristic society. We're about to come into, whatever you want to call these months and these days. You know, there's the more wholesome side of Indigenous Heritage Month and Indigenous Day, and all these other, historical aspects of a lot of stuff that, you know who whichever angle you're coming at it from, it's going to be hard to kind of ignore the consumeristic society around you. Like, around Halloween, I was driving around my neighborhood and the mall had those big bows. Like, the mall has these big, like, concrete or stone, like, signs, like, near a lot of the entrances to the parking. And on top of those big, tall, um, pieces of stone or concrete, they put big, gigantic bows. They're probably like more than like a yard wide. Like, they're really not a yard, like a yardstick, not like a yard like a person's physical yard at their house, but they're pretty big. And uh basically, those huge signs are, it's like, it wasn't even November yet, and there was already stuff representing Christmas that was up. And I mean, I'm pretty sure you've already started seeing, emails coming to you, pop-ups all over every platform. Oh, Black Friday, and Cyber Monday, and all these sales are coming up. Um, if you started trying now, do you think it's possible to make no money? And if you make no money and you invested no money, like, what have you really lost? You've gained a lot of skills, basically. But if you're going to make any money on any kind of online platform where you're selling anything, this is the time of year to do it. Start early. If you need inventory, now's the time to get it. Shipping is only going to get worse. Post office, waits in the line are only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse, guys. So, um, yeah, and this is something that a lot of people don't talk about, though, because a lot of people, I'm not knocking people who want to get, monetized on YouTube, or, you know doing something where they're, making money online through YouTube. Some routes do take a little bit longer. Um, the Shopify store route can take a little bit longer than something like eBay. Um, I would say, um, the benefit of Shopify is you can kind of promote things more within a niche. You can kind of do that with eBay too, but I don't know how well it converts if you're, creating ads and things and then trying to connect it to like an eBay store. Um, but people might, I mean, I think it could work, honestly. most people don't do it that way. Most people would rather kind of have their own store. But we've talked about the downside of having a Shopify store. Um, One of the downsides of it is that you have to pay. It's not free. You have to have a domain name if you don't want to use a .shopify, and I don't really know that many people who would recommend using no domain name. You can even get a cheap one that might be crappy, as long as it kind of matches your niche. Uh, but I mean, I guess it technically doesn't even have to match your niche. Like, but um, cold traffic isn't really gonna gravitate too well towards something that the keywords aren't really matching. So it does help to have the at least some kind of keyword relevance to your domain name. Um, but when it comes to the mindset of things, I mean, you got to pay attention to what you're telling yourself, and a lot of times it's hard, when you look around, you're like, I don't see anybody else who looks like me doing this. Now, the thing is about online stores and these types of things is that a lot of times it's kind of like a silent kind of selling. Like you don't usually have a brand behind it. You might if it's like specifically like an LGBT relevant kind of brand, but you don't usually have like some kind of like LGBT element unless you're selling like like trans tape or some kind of like boxers or pride flags or some kind of rainbow kind of swag or something that's like somebody would look at it and be like, oh, this is like a type of an LGBT relevant niche. Like a lot of times you're not going to find stuff like that. Um, there can be LGBT people all over the place with online stores and you would never know. And so, and it doesn't have to be, an LGBT relevant kind of niche. It can be anything. Whatever is probably going to be one of the easiest things to sell. Um, or the easiest niches to sell in because you kind of know um, and understand firsthand, the pain points that people have. Um, I mean, when it comes to, online selling and things like that, I definitely understand that. And I don't know if online selling is any easier than in person selling. That's something I have not really yet determined. It's easier somewhat to get traffic online, but also if you live in like a busy city, yard sales nowadays, garage sales, that's really popular, and people are on the hunt to shop. They want to find stuff to buy, so you might actually be able to find ways to sell stuff um, pretty easily. I've seen a lot of people seem like they're doing some kind of cleaning. I've seen a lot of couches, benches, chairs, old tables, stuff like that. It's like it looks like it's in decent condition. A lot of it's like old, but if you're in a niche where you're like fixing up furniture, there's plenty of free furniture curbside that I've seen just driving around, and I've started seeing it lately this month in November. Now the rainy season in our area is going to start soon. It's going to start sometime like late next week. Um, or maybe it's just one bout of rain. I don't really know, but it's probably going to start next week. And so, things are going to start changing with the weather. I mean, you can even think of things that are very, very seasonal, like weather related, items. Um, there's a lot of stuff that you can really think about and like whether it's products um, or services. Um, I'm kind of more into the combination. Um, I've got services to sell because I write a lot, Anyone who knows me, I write a lot. If I'm texting you too much, apologies, but I write. That's what I do. I come on here and I rant and I, just kind of ramble, but um mostly I write. That's mostly what I do. Um and you can promote, your work on Fiverr, on Upwork. I know they have bad reputations, but you have to put yourself out there a bit. You have to promote your own services. Um and if you have a reputation or some kind of portfolio to show for it, you'll probably be pretty well off with trying to do that. Um, it's it's not too uh um it's not too like I would say it's not too easy to really um get started in something where you're starting it yourself. Like when you're starting your own job, um but you guys, this digital land is full of opportunity for you to start your own job. I'm not talking about, the fake gurus and all the like get rich quick kind of like, you guys know that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the do no work and wake up with like $8 million in your bank account. Like, I'm talking about, building skills, actually spending the time and effort like you would in school, but it's faster because you don't have to sit through someone else's, theory of this and like take like years and years of like all these classes from back in, like I'm not saying theory is not important, but skills are important. And a lot of times in school, you're not practicing the actual direct skills. You're practicing writing about how people did it. Let's write about the theory. Let's write a book report. Let's write a lit review on, you know, past research that other people did. And it's like, cool. Like, if you're in the research field, that's fine. But when you think of it in school, you're usually writing lit reviews. You're usually writing about what other people wrote and what you read about what they wrote, and then you're writing about it. That's mostly what every class paper is. You pick a topic, who knows what your topic is, the history of how we use paper notebooks now. I don't know, maybe we don't even use paper notebooks anymore. I don't even know, I haven't been in school for a bit. Maybe people just type everything now on laptops or tablets. I really don't know what happens in the classroom. It's been a bit, guys, but let's call it how we got to digital notebooks from, writing on tablets of stone and going into scrolls, into bound books, into diaries, into, you know, the classic like spiral bound notebooks and things that we use in standardized paper, lining and all that. Yeah, I don't know. Like, maybe you have to write a paper about that. That would suck. That sounds like the worst topic ever. But if you think about it, you're basically pulling sources from history, from other literature, like, oh, this is what this author wrote about, the art of creating a notebook or whatever. And you're just like going through the history and writing up until now, what does it look like now? Um, that's basically how all your papers look, though, right? There's like some topic and you're writing about it. Most people know how to write a paper. Um, but if you think about it, you do that in every single class, almost every single class, right? You have to write a paper that's kind of that style multiple times a, a term. And then you take exams that are usually, there's usually a few styles of exams, right? You can do something lab style where you're like looking at like a dissected frog, or like looking at some kind of chemical interactions, or looking under a microscope, or examining something and like labeling it, or doing like an oral presentation, or again another paper. some kind of PowerPoint presentation. Uh, that's all you really do in school. You know, you take exams, you write papers, and you present. And then you sit in the classroom all the time and you learn. And then you take stuff home and you do assignments and you turn them in, you know, answering questions basically that's in the book. That's there aren't that many categories of things you usually do in school, right? There are like the other types of things, like if you're in the sports or if you're into like something kind of more like wood shop class or welding or you know some kind of sports class, like yeah, your tests and things are going to look a little bit different, but most classes you're doing those categories. There's just categories of things you do and you don't do any more than that ever, you know, unless you have one of these like schools or teachers where they're like super like artistic and creative and you're doing some introspective thing, but that's super rare. You're usually doing you, one of a few types of options of either assignments, homework, presentations, or exams, right? And you do it for years and years and years and years, and you get good at doing that. And then you apply for jobs and you're like, but I did all these papers and presentations. And so, unless you're going into like an academia field or like a tutoring field or something like that, usually what happens when you come out of school is you know how to do things within these categories. I know how to do homework. I know how to write papers. I know how to, you know, take different types of exams. I know how to do different types of presentations, but do I know how to do this freaking job? And so you go to apply to the jobs and they're like, well, you don't have any experience actually doing this. Like, if you've tried to go into a field that's like, you know, car mechanics or, you know, like computer repair, like the physical, like hardware part of it, or like some kind of like instrument building or instrument repair for like guitars or whatever, like you probably learned some hands-on skills. Hopefully you didn't just read a book and do some homework on it, right? Like you would have done some skills. But when you think about a lot of other fields like cybersecurity, fields like even the field of psychology, fields like different engineering fields, fields like nursing. I mean, I feel like nursing is a little different because they do fast track you and you do learn a lot more hands on, like in the field, like you're shadowing and you're in clinics and hospitals and you're actually like following along in person. But most schooling doesn't look like that. Most schooling is very book and paper and presentation based. And then you apply to a job and they're like, but all you know is the theory and what you do in these different categories in school. You don't know how to do the job. Like if I were applying for a job as a case manager and all I did was take a bunch of psychology classes, never practiced anything, I don't know how where to look, I don't know the resources to look for resources, I don't know how to talk to clients, I've never practiced or even done mock therapy or mock treatment or any kind of mock anything, you know, I would not know how to do the job. I would have to literally sit in the job and have somebody train me to do it. And a lot of companies don't want to train you to do it. They want you to have experience actually doing the skills. So, one thing that I think people need to learn when they're in school is you need to start building some kind of a portfolio or some type of work into what you actually need to do. For example, if you were going into psychology, you could volunteer for this site called Seven Cups. It's basically a site where people can get like peer support, and basically you would be doing a form of therapeutic intervention. It's a very like casual form, and you would basically just be supporting people, like helping them with their mindset, things like that, through a text-based service. It's free to you other than your time, and at least you've provided some form of therapeutic intervention versus just reading a book about Freud or whatever. It's like you don't know how to do the job. Like you've never practiced it. You've never practiced that actual job. And, you know, there's just that big disconnect between school and actual work. And once you've been working, you kind of realize all the stuff that you never learned in school. Like you learned all this theory, and I'm not saying that's not important. Like, it is important, but usually what employers want is for you to be able to do the skills. And you can learn skills to jobs on your own. It just depends what field you're in, if they're going to like accept you as like, credible, um and there are a lot of fields like with digital marketing, with blogging, um with writing ads, writing email, you know, email content, writing content for people's YouTube channels, not well, scripts maybe, but even just writing like the descriptions, that can be a little boring, but you can do that. Um, writing descriptions for people's podcast episodes. There's all types of things you can do that are writing based, and most people in school, I'm not saying everybody's skilled at writing, but most of the time in school, you're writing all the freaking time, anyways. If you're not reading, you're writing, right? That's how school works. You're reading and you're writing most of the time. Or you're listening to lectures. Like, that's what you spend the majority of your time doing. And on occasion, you'll be talking if you have to give like a presentation or like contribute in the classroom. So, I think when it comes to money mindset of people, especially with LGBT people, first of all, if you're doing stuff online, you're not really going to see a lot of people that look like you all the time unless they're behind a camera. You're usually not going to see people. Like, there are plenty of LGBT content creators, and a lot of times too their content gets kind of banned or not promoted, and so there are even less that are being that you have like exposure to. um so it's hard to really see people that look like you in a space and be like, oh, they're doing a lot. But I gotta say, I was pretty surprised. I said I would talk about this a little bit, and I never got back to it, but I was pretty surprised with the Spotify for Podcasters panel discussions. They kind of had these panel discussions where they had some podcasters send in questions that they would answer live, and then you could go back and listen to it. And they have it archived as well, for the Spotify for Podcasters. A lot of them are based in like, I think, LA or New York. There are actually a lot of LGBT people on the platform, um, that are in charge. These are the people in charge of the content creation of Spotify for Podcasters. There's a big LGBT presence there. You would never know that just going into Spotify and listening to podcasts, this one or other people's podcasts. You would never know that just by it being there. You would never know that. But once you start listening to the people that they're promoting, I think the majority of the people were LGBT on that platform that I listened to in the last episode that they put out. And that's what I mean when I say you don't usually see people that look like you because they're behind the computer. They're writing these websites, they are making these websites, they're making the content. And if they're not talking specifically about an LGBT topic or contributing directly to the community, as in like verbally stating, oh, I'm contributing to the community, you know, you wouldn't know. And, even in, if you even take a step back, like if you look back at BuzzFeed, remember BuzzFeed? Like, um, let's call it like 5 years ago or so, 5, 6 years ago, BuzzFeed was, uh, like trying to take over YouTube basically. Like, they had so much content out there. And after a while, you started seeing there's a lot of LGBT content creators, a lot of people who moved to LA. LA has a lot of LGBT people. And, there's a lot of LGBT content creators. There's tons of them. You might not see them all, but they're around. They're like hidden in all the little nooks and crannies and corners of the internet. Um, but just because they don't create specific LGBT content doesn't mean that they're not there. Just because they don't talk about it doesn't mean that they're not there. And, from what I've noticed, there is a very high percentage of people that are LGBT that are working in digital marketing types of positions, working behind the scenes for a lot of these companies. And one benefit to jobs like that, or more than one benefit, is you're working remotely. You don't have to deal with the whole, like, you know, stress of the dress code that, most mainstream companies want you to focus on. You're not going to be like bogged down with somebody being like, oh, you have to wear, you know, um, I don't know what, like, what do people wear? Like ties or dresses or whatever. Um, like certain types of shoes, like dress shoes or whatever. Nobody's telling you what to wear when you're working remotely. Um, but I would want to encourage people, if you're having trouble finding work or direction of work to go in, start this season, trying to do some stuff online, learning about it, seeing how you can make money doing it. I mean, it doesn't have to be even LGBT based if you're not comfortable with it, or even if you are comfortable with it. It doesn't have to be based in like LGBT lifestyle. Um, I gotta turn off this fan now, this heater. I'm like literally melting. Um, but yeah, it doesn't have to be based in that. Um, I need I need a second. I gotta turn this thing off. All right, man. The house is 67 degrees right now. I mean, out here that's cold, guys. Like our houses aren't built in LA for very cold weather. Like I don't feel like the insulation is proper all the time. Like I've mentioned, my windows and most of the house, when you're sitting next to a window, you can hear um I mean, when you're sitting next to a window, you can feel the the cold air. um it's it's that time of year again. I got to get in some final beach days this week, and early next week. But think about it, guys. Think about it. If you're trying to look for extra money, extra ways to make money, what better extra way to make money than to learn how to do it digitally from your own home? If you can get good at selling stuff online, whether that's your own services or your own, like some kind of products, um, if you can get good at that, you'll always be able to make money on your own. Nobody's ever going to put a cap on your income. Nobody's ever going to tell you, how much you can or cannot make. You're not going to be working for hourly wages. You can get customers, put in the work. I mean, most people for blog posts, it's not uncommon to be getting paid $30 an hour, 30 to $40 an hour, or like maybe about $30 to $40 per thousand words. That's not uncommon. That's decent money. Now that's like before taxes and everything, but that's decent money. And if it takes you even 2 hours to write one article, you're still getting like $20 an hour, you know, and that's pretty standard. And if you're writing within a niche that you already know, you'll be able to write quite a bit of topics. You'll be able to write quite a bit. And with the use of AI, now I'm not saying just like use AI to write your blog post. A lot of companies are, cracking down on that. And I guess if you wanted to follow someone who's got really good content, Tyson 4D, I may have talked about him before. He's really good. Um, there's a guy who came out um from his content. His name is Kevin Wagner. So Kevin Wagner, I don't know if you pronounce his name Wagner or Wagner, but Kevin Wagner is um a previous student of Tyson 4D's. Tyson 4D was, I think he first started gaining his skills through Andrew Tate's Hustler University or whatever the other one that he had. Uh, the kind of like skill building, skill learning service for copywriting, and he basically tweaked it and made it better and post content almost every day. Very good content, and I think people underestimate, the use of skills, because we're not taught that in school. We're not taught, okay, how can I market a skill? What they need to teach you in school is basically, okay, you learn how to do this. How do you market it and like use it and make money? Like that's what they need to teach you in schools, how to make money, you know, but most of the time you need to be able to pass standardized testing and learn all these types of skills and stuff. That's more what they're focused on. Um, they're focused on you learning school skills. They're not focused on you learning work skills. And I would encourage people, go and get into spaces where you're learning actual work skills, because that's what school is lacking. Like a lot of programs, until you're in grad school, a lot of times you're not actually learning what you need to actually do on the job, or until you're like way later in your career. And tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. Like, how many times have you sat in a class and learned more than the other things that I actually said? It's rare. If anything, it's rare. Like, I had a teacher once who taught us certain skills. Um, Let me see. I've had teachers that taught us like a little bit of alternative skills, and it's rare. Like I know I've had them, but I can't even think of a lot off the top of my head. But most of the time, you're really just writing papers, doing homework, doing in-class assignments. Um, it's up to you to kind of take it home and take it to another level. Um, like I think I learned that I knew how to make something that was quote unquote like marketable when we had to do class projects. Now, not the group projects. I hated those so much. I mean, the projects where you sit at home and you make something and you come to class and you show off what you made. And it's like maybe like a replica or some kind of science fair project or some kind of like physical thing that you do. I kind of learned what teachers would want. Like I remember once I had this class where we had to write, and we did a lot of writing, a lot of papers and stuff. And I remember I was like, this is just so, not that I didn't want to write, it's just like we had to write such long papers, and I was like, I like doing poetry. And I remember we had to do something about like writing, like what are we good at, what do we have like a passion towards. And at the time I was like really into like writing music, writing poetry, and the professor actually let me write a poem for class. This was like in college. Instead of writing like a however many like lengthy page, let's call it like 15 to 10 to 15 pages back then. It was like an upper division class, and I wrote a poem, like a one-page poem. And I think this was a poem I'd actually written in high school, and I basically put like an extra verse at the end of it or something, and I submitted this poem. And it's like stuff like that where you're like, this is an English teacher, she's going to be interested in this, like. And I got permission to do it before. She's like, why don't you write a poem, because I can tell that's what you like writing. And so she let me submit that, and I was like, how many times are you going to get away with being the one student that writes some other thing? And I remember making things for class. Like we had Bible class, and we had to do a project, and I made this whole little like replica of this little like house that had the upper room, because it was like the Last Supper replica, because that was my topic. And I made a whole little like open roof, like where you could see like the little table and the 12 disciples and the little staircase that goes up and the little sheep and stuff like all around. And like I made like this whole like thing. Everyone else wrote papers, and I made this physical building, like a small little physical building, and things like that. And like, of course, I was clearing this stuff with teachers. I wasn't just like rogue, just like making weird projects. But I kind of learned early on that I was like, there is an alternative way to kind of getting things done and learning how to do stuff. Like, I learned how to do a lot of weird, like, arts and crafts and kind of little skills just because I chose to do projects that weren't just writing papers all the time. It's like, okay, I know how to write a freaking paper. Like, we do it all the time. Like, do I need to really be doing this, like, every day, all the time? If you think of how many papers you write, it's kind of ridiculous. And if you think of work, how many times at work do you write a paper? Like, tell me. I mean, like, we in psychology, of course, we wrote like tons and tons of assessments, but none of it was like papers. It was all the only thing that was written like a paper was when you did like maybe like your clinical formulation was maybe similar to like a summary, like a clinical summary. That's kind of the closest thing I can think of. And we did a lot of presentations that were very similar to kind of what we would have done in class, but it was specifically about clients. Um, but as far as actual just writing papers, you don't really do that. Depending on your job, like you usually aren't going to write that many papers in work. Like usually you're not. Like most jobs you're not going to be writing papers the same way you do at school. And so you really do need to these days, learn skills that are actually going to transfer into work and practice them. And you can practice them even when you're in high school, even when you're in early college phases, even when you're in a phase where you're looking for a job. You can learn skills to practice and actually start making money doing that without having to rely on, working in a mall store or working at a grocery store or working, for other stores where you're just like, you're the manual labor, which is fine. You're part of the wheel that keeps the company turning. But, you know, those skills are transferable too. I'm not going to say that like working at fast food isn't transferable. Like you're learning a business. If you really focus on it properly, you're learning a business. If you're not just like, okay, like I'm the one who makes, you know, um I'm the one who slices the meat and, labels it or packages it or whatever. Um they're out early this morning, guys. But yeah, you're usually making, you know, uh usually something more is happening. And it's important to notice. It's important to pay attention to if there's a disconnect. If you find that there's a major disconnect between what you're learning and what you need to actually be doing and practicing, then you need to kind of change that. And I would say the best way to test if your skills are worth it is make projects for yourself and see if you can get some sales on something. And this goes for people of any stage, whether you're already working, whether you're brand new to work and you're applying for some of your first jobs, whether you're in high school and you just graduated or you're just about to graduate this coming summer. Think of it that way, because we're going towards a very heavily, online skill base lately. That's I think that's half of the issue with people, not wanting to choose um in-person jobs too, is because you're using so much money with the gas and everything. And a lot of these jobs don't pay enough to just have one job. You have to have so many jobs just to be able to like pay for your expensive rent or your expensive car or all your other expensive groceries. um and it's just not going to cut it. So if you can learn other skills where you can do them from home. I mean, you're gonna be able to win that way. Um, and there might not be people who you see that look like you, but they're definitely behind most of these companies, and they're running these companies. They're running the platforms. Um, but I would just recommend that, building skills nowadays that you can use online. That's the best.